So, welcome back to the Raising Our Vibration podcast, where we explore higher consciousness through spiritual practice. And today, Stephen and I are going to talk about releasing inner knots. So, what are inner knots? Let's start with the idea that our whole life experience, your whole life experience, is stored in your cells and in your energy field. So imagine that your whole life history, everything that's happened, is stored both in your cells and in the energy field of your body, heart, and mind. And any experiences that were more than you could handle at the time, more than you could process, are unresolved and are stored as tension in your cells, in your muscles, your connective tissue, your energy field, so that they persist in your subconscious awareness. And what happens is that you will then have a limiting belief around that type of situation. For example, I've often talked about an example where I had a public speaking experience when I was in sixth grade. I had to give the sixth grade graduation speech, and I was terrified about that. And I really tensed up around it and wanted to run out of there, and kind of did it half in a fog. And it went okay, but there were some people kind of laughing, some kids laughing at me kind of freezing for a moment. And so it was a traumatic experience in my little sixth grade world. So that experience became stored as a limiting belief for me around public speaking. So I thought, oh, that's just not something for me. So I said, well, here's the way I am, and that public speaking thing, that's not me. Okay, so that not me became stored as a knot of tension in my body, in my energy field. And it persisted for years and years and years. Whenever public speaking experience or opportunities would come up, I would just panic about that. And I would think, oh, no. I don't want to do that. That's not me. I'm not the kind of person to do that. And so it took a long time for me to really uncover that limiting belief and cultivate this ability to speak in front of people and share what was important to me and all that. So that's an example of what an inner knot can be. And inner knots can be associated with any painful or humiliating or challenging experience that you can't really handle in the moment. And all of us have these in various different ways and various different areas of our lives. And so what tends to happen when we have one of these inner knots, it's associated with a limiting belief, and then we project that belief out onto the world, out onto our life, and we perceive the circumstances around us according to that limiting belief. So that can create a lot of tension, that can create ongoing struggles. And so it becomes very important to learn how to release these inner knots, how to let go of these limiting beliefs. And it begins, as all changes do, with awareness. So we have to become aware of that which we've repressed, that which we've put down, that which we've said no to, or that which was too hard for us to handle. We have to welcome it into awareness, and that can feel really vulnerable. Okay, that's not something that we would want to do unless we had this idea, this feeling, this knowledge that we could release this and that there is a way to get free. And so the first and most important step in this process is to feel safe to do that. Okay, it feels very vulnerable to face our inner fears, our limiting beliefs. So in order to do that, in order to welcome them into awareness, which can feel very vulnerable, we have to feel like there's a safe space that we're sitting in, a safe place that we can be in order to do that process. So that's the first of 3 steps we're going to talk about in this podcast. And so I'll pass it over to you, Stephen, with this idea of how do we find a safe space that we can become aware of things that are challenging from.
Kevin, thank you, and love and blessings to everybody who's listening or watching. So yeah, finding a safe place of awareness, or finding a safe place generally, can be a pretty sticky and challenging subject for many people. You know, as you watch these shifting times and these struggles that our world faces, you might be drawn into that struggle. You might feel like, oh, you're watching the news and it just seems like there's a lot of strife in the money market, troubles in global warming, challenges in the economic climate generally, or the health climate, even if we look at the challenges with health all over the planet, and then all these geopolitical divisions and the way that war or conflict arises. So there's a lot of things at the moment, just right now, if we speak about the present, for us to be drawn out towards. So to come inwards to this safe place, it actually requires us to stop first and foremost. So I always like doing this as in a sense of, you know, inquiry, Kevin, where we're genuinely, all of you who are listening, are actually genuinely inquiring together into what a safe place is in times of conflict. So if you consider just for a moment as you're listening to us, first of all, a way to work with the inwardness that Kevin and I often speak about, this interoception, is actually coming into the body. You need to be aware of sensations in the body first and foremost, because they're generally, sometimes that's not always a safe place for people either. The body can feel a bit like, especially if you're having struggles at the moment. My sister just got COVID, and she had a lot of challenges with it, found it a very difficult time. So I was talking to her about different ways to find these safe places in the midst of challenge. And for her, the music was really helpful, just the vibration of finding a real calm and peaceful piece of music. So she likes orchestral music, and she found that very soothing. And then also, because it was dealing with breathing, she was it felt uncomfortable for her to necessarily use breathing as a safe place, because it didn't feel that safe. It was really quite challenging for her to breathe while she had this. So she found the music at that particular time was really useful for her. So for each of you, it's going to be different how the safe place works. But initially, if we're to do this together, feel just into your body. Just notice for a moment what sensations are flowing in your body. Just become aware of the body sensations. So take a moment to connect back into your body. And just notice what's happening in your body. Just simply that. Just notice any sensations that are present right now. If you're driving, you might want to stop and pull over, because it might not be that easy to do. Otherwise, you could close your eyes and just notice what's happening in your body, and notice any sensations that are present right now. And just notice them curiously, without any sense of judgment. So you're just simply present to whatever's happening. So for example, right now I've got there's a vibration in my body. There's some sensations. They're very subtle. I can feel some energy in my calves because I've just been mountain biking through a forest. I always feel energy in my hands. Just notice what's present. No judgment, no opinions about it. Just notice. And as you feel these sensations unfolding, see if you can experience them not as objects, but just simply as sensations playing in a field of openness. and allowing and awareness. It's almost like your body's happening within this ocean of awareness, and all your sensations that you experience, a bit like waves. They just come, they rise, they fall. Because you might notice that. You might notice your attention goes to, oh, okay, I've got energy in my calves. And then you feel the energy in your hands, like I was just giving as an example. So it's really simple. You're just relaxing back. So there's a sense just sitting back into that source or into that boundless awareness that can embrace everything, and just relaxing into that full expanse of this open and unbound awareness. And you're just allowing everything, the sensations, the experience of your body, just to unfold within that effortlessly. There's nothing really to do. You're just sitting, relaxing, noticing, being aware of what's present. So that's the first step. And as you feel into that presence, you might notice there's a sense of peace or calmness that comes along with this as you bring this background to the foreground. And you might feel that presence. Just check in with your awareness. See if you can experiment. Have a little fun. Play with it a little bit. See if you can see it or feel it flow into your feet. Just notice what happens when you do that. Because you're just learning to create a safe place around awareness itself. So you might feel it in your feet. When I feel it into my feet, I can feel the contact of the feet with the ground. I can feel certain energy from the earth. I can feel the soles of my feet. I can feel this presence. It's like my feet are really there, very present, grounded.
So I noticed, Stephen, that when I close my eyes and I feel inside, the cues from meditation posture are just readily, they just come right into place. You know, like you said, the feelings in my feet and relaxation in my hands, a sense of grounding, sense of upright posture. And so this has, over the years, become a really safe place for me that's kind of automatic, that just happens just because it's been cultivated in meditation.
Right. Exactly the same for me, Kevin. That same safe space, that cultivation of a safe space. So what Kevin's speaking to is the advantages of practice, regular practice, that this safe place becomes a cultivated and very recognized safe place. So Kevin's mentioned feeling into his feet and feeling the presence and the safety of awareness here. Because that's really what we're speaking to in this first step, the safety of awareness. And then in the hands, the felt sense in the hands, the softness. Both Kevin and I feel a genuine openness and softness and sense of allowing just by checking in with the hands. When you open your hands, there's a sense of just simply being open. That very gesture of openness actually opens us to experience. It's a bit like why mudras or hand gestures are considered so important in many ancient traditions. Because the mere fact that you open your hands or you soften your hands opens you to openness or opens you to softness. So just find whatever is safe and clear and open for you. So as Kevin beautifully mentioned, it could be your feet and resting there, could be your hands and resting there, could be in the uprightness of your spine and resting here. So as you're resting like this, now we're going to come into this space of the safety of awareness. And it might be an actual safe place. With a lot of clients that I've worked with, once they get this feeling in their body, then we also look at a safe place in the mind, right? So we've got safe places in the body. We've got safe places in our mind. We've got safe places in our heart. So let's just inquire into what's a safe place in your mind. And this is usually a thought or a memory or from perhaps childhood, or perhaps a teenage year, even adult years, where there was just a safety in what happened. One of my favorite experiences of somebody who's came to see me to find this safe place was someone who worked with many companies, who was in charge of a lot of people. And his safe place, once we found it, was simply resting in a creek in the forest. Just, that sort of feeling you get paddling your feet in a creek. So it's simply you're bringing to mind an experience or an image, and really feeling what it might be like to actually be there. It's an experience or an image that helps you feel safe. And if you're not sure about one, it's okay just to rest in your body and feel into the safety of your feet, for example. So I was fortunate enough to have this beautiful creek behind my house when I was growing up. So I actually, that felt sense of dangling my feet over the bank into this creek, which had these little beautiful mountain trout, because I was living in New Zealand at the time. And I used to sit there for hours with my brother. We'd just paddle our feet, watch the trout, watch the sunlight on the water. And we didn't do a lot else. We just kind of chatted, sat, felt very good. So Kevin might share with you what's coming up for him, like what's that safe place that he finds so easeful to connect to.
Yeah. So also a natural spot for me is up in Maine, camping up in Maine, just sitting on the beach and looking out and hearing the sounds of the water and the sounds of the birds flying past, and there was porpoises that or seals that would swim by in front. And it's just feeling like everything's just, the water's just gently waving, and the seals are just going up and down and swimming, and everything is just kind of quiet and peaceful. And yeah, it's a spot I can easily remember and easily bring myself back to.
Oh, it's beautiful. I can feel it. I mean, it's the wonderful thing about sharing that kind of safe place, is that I can feel right into it too. So as you were describing it so beautifully, I feel like I'm right there. So this is a really useful energy and of awareness to activate and to feel safe around. So the safety in the body, the safety in the mind. The other thing, Kevin, I'm just curious to inquire into as people are listening, is that the safe place or the safe space of feeling. I'm curious where your safe space of feeling is, because we've talked about this before. So while people are listening, you might want to inquire about if you have just one feeling that you go to, and sometimes it's a spacious feeling, sometimes it's a stillness feeling, sometimes it could be just being silent. Sometimes for me it's a very devotional, loving place because of my mum my mum's work over many years and my godmother's work, when I was brought up in that early Carmelite tradition, I really seemed to find that home, naturally in that loving devotional place. So for me, that's my heartfelt safe place. It's just to go to this simple, like a mother's love, I guess you would say.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, as you might imagine, it's a feeling of vast open space. Like when you look up at the stars in the night sky and the sky is just vast and open and just opens up your mind and it just feels like, look at, it just feels like everything is right in life. And so, yeah, it's that vast, open, spacious feeling for me.
Beautiful, beautiful. So that's as Kevin was sharing, this is the first thing, the first aspect really of releasing inner knots, is finding the safe place of awareness. And the reason I wanted to point to 3 of them is simply it could be a safe place in your body. It could be a safe place in your mind, and it could be a safe place in your heart. Of course, it could be all 3 in a sense. And there might be one that you favor. So for example, in the gentleman that I gave the example of, who was dealing with a lot of companies, a lot of people, and yet it all came back to finding this safe place, paddling in the creek or in the stream. So and it was so helpful to find that safe place, because he hadn't actually thought about it for many, many years. And when he did find that, and he could keep going back to it, of course, it in turn generated the feeling, and it generated the safety, and it generated that safety of awareness, that safe feeling of awareness, where it just helps point back to awareness, because you're aware when you're feeling really safe. You're aware that you're safe.
Yeah. And then we can move to step 2, where from that space, that safe space of awareness, then we can approach what's challenging, right? So, and one of the ways we do that is by approaching it not in terms of the emotional content but in terms of feeling it as a sensation, right? So we have this exercise we do in our 10-week subtle energy meditation course, where we call to mind the challenge, and then we feel it as a sensation in the body. So where is it located? Does it have a size, a shape, a weight, a density, a color, a sound, a message, right? All these sensory qualities. And by approaching it from the safe space as a sensation, that also takes kind of the emotional layers off of it, because you're not looking at it in terms of the content of the experience, but more in the felt sensory experience, right? So when we are approaching it as a felt sensory experience, then we kind of have some observational distance from it. We're like curious about it. We're just, does it have a color? Oh yeah, it does have a color. It has a weight. It becomes this sort of curiosity rather than focusing on the scary content, right?
Exactly. Kevin is beautifully put. I mean, it allows you to, reframe your experience from awareness itself, which is really quite an art. I mean, if I continue the story of that wonderful person who was paddling in the creek, and then we looked at his challenges, and he had quite a few. So, and if you're listening, so what you might want to consider is right now is some of the challenges you might be facing at the moment. You don't need to take, ideally you do this in terms of baby steps. You don't start with the biggest thing first and say, right, I'm going to solve. You actually take something that's kind of just been bothering you for a little while, and you just think, oh, it'd be nice to kind of understand how to deal with that. So if you're doing that now, if you just simply bring it, so the first thing is you come back to this place. So I'll use the example, right? So you're sitting in your creek, or like Kevin, you're watching the dolphins flow by, or I'm sitting with my brother, or you could feel into the body. You could actually be finding that sitting with your feet planted on the ground is also really working for you. You're just resting there. You're resting back in that beautiful sense of safety, and the safety of awareness itself. And so you're paddling your feet, and you've got this, you simply allow that obstruction or that challenge or that obstacle to come up. Just literally allow it to come up. Allow it to be there for a while. Allow it to be there with a sense of welcoming or kindness, as if you're bringing a genuine kindness, like to a friend, instead of seeing it as an obstacle or a challenge. Because I can already feel you doing that, right? Your kindness is starting to melt it, right? It brings these subtle tears to my eyes because I can actually feel into what you're all doing, that you're actually loving your problem. Actually bringing this sense of love and kindness and care, right? It's about bringing this caring quality of awareness, or this loving, vast love, just as Kevin was saying about the vast spaciousness. You literally embrace it with that spaciousness, or you embrace it with the flow or the safety or the felt sense, because it's actually now okay to embrace that in a really, really safe and unbound or limitless way. Right? You just be really simply open to what it shows you. It's like a friend, who turns up with maybe something, a gift. You kind of see it as a gift instead of a problem. And you just wait. You don't rush it. Because in essence, your problems and your challenges, a little bit like your children, all they've really wanted to do is go outside and play. And you've kept them inside and they're doing their chores and they're getting antsy, starting to drop things on the floor and push each other, right? But here what you're doing is you're allowing space, just like Kevin said about spaciousness. You're just allowing this obstacle to have space. Wow, what a wonderful opportunity to actually give a problem some space to breathe, right? Because like even your good thoughts, you might be somebody who gives you good thoughts lots of space to breathe. It's always like, I'm going to do that. Yeah, I'm going to achieve this. I'm going to, but your poor old problems and obstacles have been pushed down there. They've been hammered into place, and no, don't you come up now. I'm trying to do something. So now you're kind of welcoming with this real beautiful sense of care. And something different happens, right? Because you're feeling into your problems from a different awareness. You're actually from this unbound awareness. So like in my example of this gentleman, so there was a number of people that he was having challenges with at work. And what happened when he did this exercise and he actually greeted them from the stream where he's with me, paddling his feet, he suddenly saw those relationships in a different light. He didn't see them as obstacles. He saw them as potential gifts that he might actually be able to help, that he might be able to actually help liberate with this gentle kindness. So this simple sense of allowing and opening and being available for your tensions and allowing them space. And you can probably feel it now. I can feel it. It's like I can feel your collective heart. My heart's gone real soft and gooey. I can feel into this kind of almost as if your heart is starting to open with mine. Like your heart's ability to love or bring kindness or embrace the problem, just as Kevin mentioned, how Kevin's spacious awareness can embrace any problem. fundamentally we're doing the same thing. We're simply opening and allowing. So Kevin, I'm curious what arose for you is, you did that, because my one, what actually came in when I was doing that myself, what came in was I was present to the challenges my sister's going through. And of course, when we're with family members, any challenge of health that our family members, it brings, because she was pretty sick actually.
Mm.
So I was really holding space to her, and I feel that stickiness of that felt sense of concern around a family member, and I just really sat with it, gave it a lot of space, and then I just kept reaching out to her. And every time I felt that, I'd feel into it. I'd say, "Oh, my sister needs love and support." So I'd send her a message and say, "Oh, I'm just sending you love and support and healing. Hope everything's okay." And she said, "Oh, you've no idea how perfectly timed that was. I was just sitting here thinking, that I didn't know what to do." And then your message, so it's, what I mean? It's like we're reaching out across time because we're coming from a timeless awareness. It can sometimes touch into the timelessness that exists between us.
Yeah. So as I was talking a little about last week, my son Will had an eye surgery, a laser procedure to relieve pressure in his eyes to save his eyesight. And so he had to have this laser, burn a hole through the sides of the retina. And, really that's a vulnerable, just to go through that, he had a lot of courage to go through that. But then, there's recovery time now, and he's seeing kind of halos and flashes, and it's it's a little unnerving. And so as as that comes up, and of course as a parent, you wish you could take everything away and make it all better. But what I just in that little practice there, I just held him in that space of that vast space of care and compassion, and just embraced him in that, and just could feel his tension around it soften. And again, just kind of in a sensory way, I could kind of feel into his sensation around it, that he had kind of tensed up around it, and I could feel the sensation of him kind of relaxing and letting go, and so on. So yeah, it's really amazing what we can do just by shifting our awareness and what we bring to a situation, right? When we shift to where we find that safe, compassionate space, and then bring that to whatever the challenge is. Like you said, welcome it like it's a friend, and like it's someone you're sitting with. And whether it's a challenge of a family member or somebody or your own challenge, to sit with it as a friend and just embrace it and be present with it and allow it to soften. And our body, hearts, and minds just know how to do this, releasing when we give the opportunity, right? When we take the time and allow it space, as you said. And so I know sometimes for some people, now we've done this kind of thing a lot in our lives, right? And we do it every day in our practice with different people's struggles. But I know sometimes it can be, people can feel like, sometimes they feel immediately that there's a shift and there's some movement and some release. But I know sometimes people feel like, oh, that took it down a notch, but I still need to work with it. I still need to process it. And I think that's where this third step of mindful journaling can come in to help us to whatever we experienced in that. Even if we experienced more of the struggle, that we take that and we take some time and just write out anything that comes to mind in relation to it. Just putting it out on paper in front of you and really physically writing can help to process and integrate the experience and give us a little more emotional distance from it, so that we can just allow it space for this just amazingly intelligent body, heart, mind energy system that we have that knows how to do this processing if we give it some time and some space and some skillful means like we're talking about here. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about mindful journaling to wrap up today.
Oh, thank you, Kevin. Yeah, I think this is another example of bringing real clarity. I remember Andrew Newberg in some of his studies used to speak about mindful journaling, where you write down just, first of all, stream of consciousness stuff, really just write whatever is currently present. And then he said, go for gobbledygook, just go and write, even, go crazy. So really go and let it all, in other words, that whatever the ultimate spontaneous arising is, and then write again. So in other words, you kind of go through a little bit of a purging. So he said that was also quite useful with people that he worked with. And then you come back to this very mindful, so now what's present? And then look, ask yourself, if your future self were to give you any guidance, what would she or he write for you? What would they write or do? And then you come back again. So you use the mindfulness to be very mindful of different phases, the what's here now, the spontaneous kind of anything goes, and the future awareness that's really in a continuum, because there's no real future or past, or you're just tapping into that possibility or that infinite potential. So those were really, I always thought that was really helpful. And then from my own personal experience, Kevin, when I was little, and this is just a different example of mindful journaling, is because I went through those extreme dreams, that dream phase where I dreamt I was a monk with you and this walking towards this monastery when we were both hit, and I fell into that timeless realm and that light and that sound. Because I had that, it made me really curious about dreaming itself. So in a mindful journaling way, I documented those. I didn't start until I was, because I was a bit overwhelmed at the age of 2 or 3, and I had to have lots of those eye tests, brain tests, every body test, because they thought something was dramatically wrong with me and couldn't find anything. But the point is, about 5, I started to actually write down the dreams that were occurring, because I was aware that something was happening. And I just, and that actually really helped me. I recorded, over a period of 10 or 10, I mean, I've been recording them ever since, actually, but over a period of 10 years, I was having about 3 dreams at least a night that I had very vivid recall and very vivid lucidity. And so I'd record at least 1,000 per year. So it was around about 10,000 every 10 years. And I did that for many, many years. So I had these huge, my mum used to say, what are these? She'd find, oh, I said, that's just my dream journal. She said, this? Because I still remember the size. It was a thumping great thickness, about, several inches thick, of just wads and wads of paper of notes. But it actually was a really incredibly, liberating process, in terms of the fact that the mindfulness of bringing to mind the dreams that were happening over the night, and any insights I'd put down in the beginning, when I was 5 or 6, I was just really noting down dreams. And I can still remember I had this dream when I was about 6 of this. I was, because you mentioned, whales and porpoises and dolphins, is that I was on this ocean riding on the back of a whale, and I was looking up at the stars, and the stars suddenly sucked me up into the star. And I remember it very vividly. I had it a few times, that same. And so that was the other thing. The mindful journaling actually helps you to be aware of patterns, the same way that some of you listening might measure brain waves and be looking at patterns. There are patterns in your stream of thought. So just, you can start to notice by regular mindful journaling what happens. So
that's one of the great ways to recognize a limiting belief, right?
Yeah.
Is to notice that repeated type of experience, that repeated type of struggle that you're having. And dreams, that's another, we could go off on a whole another tangent on that, but what a powerful way to become aware of the subconscious, right? And you're such a master at that and have such a history of becoming aware through your dreams and journaling them. So yeah, that's a powerful practice for sure.
I'm curious, Kevin. So what's in terms of journaling? What have you found that's been the most useful?
Yeah, again now journaling about repeated types of events in my life, and also repeated recurring dreams that I've had. And again, we might want to reserve a whole nother episode for dream journaling, because it's such a rich practice, and such a profound way to make the subconscious conscious. But I have noticed over the years that my recurring dreams change as I kind of progress along my path, right? So there's like I used to, way back when, I would have these dreams of like being in school and I didn't know there was a test that day. I had all these dreams of being unprepared, and for years and years and years I was unprepared. And then I learned in my life that if I prepare myself, I feel really confident. And so then I did that with public speaking things. So I'd really prepare myself. So, well, I really know this stuff. And so I prepared in my life for life events. And then I found in my dreams, I'd have dreams where I was prepared and I was successful, right? So my dreams kind of reflected what I was doing in my life. And so it's amazing practice to go back and forth between addressing things in your life, becoming aware of patterns in your life, and becoming aware of patterns in your dreams, and seeing how things shift and evolve over time. There's an amazing intelligence and logic to it that is fascinating when we tune into it.
Oh, absolutely. Kevin, just on a funny note, because I'm sure it's going to make people chuckle. My dream of last night was that I was on Dagobah system, Yoda's homeworld, and there was Yoda and Grogu and me, and I was the third Yoda in the deck. It just made it. Nice. I woke up with a really big chuckle, because it's been a nickname for a while as Forest Yoda. So I was actually on Dagobah. I thought when I woke up, it did feel like home amongst the swamp. I mean, Yoda and Grogu was kind of having their funny little short. It was a very humorous planet. I can tell.
That's wonderful. Just the lightness of that. And I think that's a wonderful place to end today, because the end result of releasing inner knots is that we do feel lighter, right? We feel lighter, we feel more free. Although it feels like, oh, I don't want to face that, when we first generate that safe space, or just find or discover that safe space and bring that to the challenge, and as we've talked about, just treat it, welcome it like a friend, and sit with it and offer it care and love, and then continue to allow it to write, right? Allow it to journal, allow it to process, and maybe even see how it's reflected in what you dream. And over time, this is an ongoing process, right, Stephen? This is a lifelong process of releasing layers and layers of inner knots, and becoming lighter and freer, and feeling like Forest Yoda, and having that lightness and that joy.
Oh, beautiful, Kevin. Yeah, what a wonderful place to finish. Your lightness and joy, because I think sometimes we can get very serious, and it's beautiful to share that lightness and joy with your family, with nature, with your kids, with people you love. So enjoy your beautiful day with lightness and joy.
Thank you, Stephen. And thank you all for watching, for listening. Thank you for your practice. And if you'd like to learn more about subtle energy meditation, the RV meditation app, and our 10-week course, and become part of our Raising Our Vibration community, please visit raisingourvibration.net. And we'd love to hear from you there. So, bye for now.